Well, I want to introduce our speaker for this evening, our workshop facilitator, Dr. Mishka Barnes. Dr. Barnes has been a teacher for 13 years, and currently she's an English second language lead teacher for the state of Georgia, and she is an expert on English language learning, and she has conducted several staff development workshops on English learners and literacy. And Dr. Barnes has also conducted research on how English learners acquire academic language to obtain reading skills. So she has a vast experience in this field, and without further ado, I'd like to turn the mic over to Dr. Mishka Barnes.
Hello, good evening everyone. How are you doing today? I hope great. Today I'm going to be presenting on how English learners are successful readers. And I am so glad to have you here, and we're going to talk about this topic a lot because, you know, right now in the school system, we have a lot of English learners, and believe it or not, we have to acquire, or we have to teach different strategies to help them become successful in the classroom. So we're going to look at our first slide here, and this is the WIDA performance definitions. And basically, this is just a rubric that explains how English learners acquire language and how they become successful readers. In order to be a successful reader, English learners must have descriptive discourse with complex sentences. They must be able to organize their ideas, and they have to have a broad range of sentence patterns. They have to be able to use technical and abstract content area language. So this is basically a rubric for the listening and reading grades K to 12. And now we're going to move on to the rubric. And I just saw a question. Yes, I will make this available to everyone as well. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the speaking and writing rubric. So this is another rubric that explains how we can help English learners become proficient in the areas of speaking and writing. In order to become proficient, they have to have a variety of grammatical structures matched to purpose, and they have to be able to explain themselves with different shades of meanings across the content area. So basically what this is saying is that if the English learner is unable to explain his or herself, they will not be able to become proficient readers, and they will not be able to explain themselves if they do not have that background in reading and in writing. Okay, so I have used this rubric in my classroom in many ways. I use it as a baseline to set goals and to conference with English learners and create my learning groups, and create an environment where we're all on the same page and we can grow and learn together. And if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you will be able to see the rubrics that I'm talking about. So let's talk about this for a second. How do you think you can use the WIDA definitions in your classroom, or how can you help students in your classroom use this as a tool? So does anyone have any thoughts on that? I'm going to go back and I'm going to show the rubric right now. Any thoughts on how you can use this rubric in your classroom, or how you can teach other teachers to use this rubric in your classroom?
We have a question. Someone wants to know what WIDA stands for.
Okay, WIDA is it's just a consortium that guides English language learners. So it's a consortium that guides English language learners. And if you would go online and look up WIDA.org when you get a chance, it's basically, I would say, like a consortium that it governs the whole English language learning in K through 12. Yes, this is what students will be doing on different levels. So we have level 5, which is the highest level, and it's called bridging. So it's the highest level. We start from different levels. We have level 1 through level 5. Level 1 are for the students that are entering the country, or the students that are new to the country and have limited English language proficiency levels. Level 2 are the students that are just gaining English language. And then we go on to level 5, which is the highest level. Right, exactly. So it's basically a framework. Okay? Okay, so basically, how I use the performance definitions is I use it to set goals in the classroom so that I can basically track the performance of each child. Or, you know, I can basically have like a baseline or some type of goal to help each student, you know, achieve their highest potential. And that's how I use the rubric. I have, when you get a chance later on, you can pull it up and look and see, but basically that's how we use it in the classroom. Yes, and this is also useful for IEPs. That's right. You can use this for IEPs for students, ESOL students, or IEPs, special education students. Right, exactly. So this is my goal today, to provide instructional strategies to successfully teach English learners how to read text and learn academic language. So today we're going to be talking about that. How can we help these students learn how to read? And it's very important for them to obtain academic language, because basically when ELs learn academic language, they're able to understand what they're reading. You know, we don't want ELs to only learn conversation English. We want them to learn that academic language so that they will be successful in the classroom. No problem. Okay, so what is academic language? Academic language consists of 3 components. We have discourse, which is forms of communication, academic vocabulary, and conventions and grammar. So I have created an acronym to help us remember what this is, what academic language is. And it's discourse, academic vocabulary, and conventions. So I refer to it as DAC. Okay? So in order for students to obtain that academic language, they have to have these 3 components. Very important. Think about it. If they do not know academic language, they will not be able to communicate in the classroom. And communicating in the classroom is very important, because that's how, you know, they learn and understand text. How do we learn language? Let's talk about that for a second. We learn language through discourse, language function, which is the purpose in which we use language to communicate. We also learn language through academic vocabulary and grammar. So in your opinion, how do you think we learn language? Let's generate some conversation about this, because I know we have different people from different areas. We have college professors, and we have some elementary and middle school. So how do you think we learn language? How does the student learn language? Or how do you think individuals learn language? Very good. By communicating with others. Any more answers? Watching, hearing others. Very good. We learn language through interaction with others about meaningful things, as well as explicit instruction. Very good. We learn language by interacting with others about meaningful things, as well as, okay. All right, anything else? All right, so we learn language in 3 different ways. We learn it by learning discourse. Well, we learn it by watching forms of communication or reading forms of communications like a play, a magazine article. We also learn language through the purpose in which we use language to communicate. So we learn it by language function, which is comparing and contrasting, asking questions, arguing, disagreeing, greeting people, and introductions. We also learn language by learning academic vocabulary and grammar. Those are some ways we learn language. So what does academic language have to do with reading? Students who do not acquire academic language, or the DAC, the acronym that we talked about before, which is discourse, academic language, and conventions, will most likely not achieve academic success because they will not understand the skills related to the curriculum. So this is so true. Basically, what it's saying is that if you do not understand the content that you're reading, you will not be able to read. It's that simple. If you do not understand what you're reading, you're not going to be able to read. So my goal today is to provide you with strategies so that you can help English learners learn how to read. How do you think English learners learn? Think about that for a second. Draw on your personal experiences and let's talk about that. Images, very good. Those visuals, yes, very good. That's a big part of it. Needs and wants, very good, very good. Acting out, very good, very good. All right. Listening to others, very good. That's another big one. It is very key to dual code. Okay, with images and text, very good. Hands-on. Using prior knowledge, very good, from their own language, very good. All right, so ELs must learn and use academic language to become successful readers. So we're going to learn these strategies now to help ELs. The first strategy that we use is we have to unpack standards. And I know we have the Common Core, and I know this is redundant. We've heard this over and over, but there is some truth to this. You have to unpack those standards, and you have to teach them the key vocabulary in the standards. For example, you have to create synonyms for verbs, tasks, or academic language. You have to think about the task. All right, so I have some examples for you. This is a Common Core standard. And it's basically a 2nd grade standard, and it says, ask and answer such questions as what, when, where, why to demonstrate and show understanding of key details in a text. So the first thing that you have to do to unpack a standard is you have to look at what the standard is actually talking about. And what is the task? And what are the academic language? What is the academic language, or what are the academic words in the standard? All right, so basically we're looking at this standard, and basically distinguish is an academic word. So what I have done here is I have placed a synonym next to that academic word so that the student can better understand the standard. So anytime you're unpacking standards, yes, thank you. You have to basically put synonyms by basically the academic language so that the students can understand it better. So I have this word distinguish. So I put determine as a synonym, their own point of view, which is your thinking, from that of the narrator or those of the characters. So basically what I'm doing here is I am giving them the standard, but I'm backing it up with a synonym that is easier for them to understand. Do we have any questions about that? Yes, very good. It will assist other students other than ESOL students. Yes, basically, it's going to help them. I'm not trying to dummy down the standard. I'm just trying to make it easier for them to understand. So basically what you would do is you would teach the standard and put the synonym next to the standard, explain it, and then bump it back up so that we understand, the actual standard. So we will, and then again, also you have to post the standard in the classroom. You just can't say it out loud. There has to be a visual, like someone said earlier. Right, there has to be a visual, like someone said earlier, to help the students understand it. Okay? All right, so this is another one. So when you're unpacking a standard, you have to use, you have to look at what the reading comprehension skill is. You have to use a synonym, and you have to know what the task is. Okay, so I have an example. Now, this is an example of unpacking the standard, and in this case, the students actually did it. If you can train them, they will actually do it. You introduce the standard to them, you explain what it is, and then they actually go up there, on the, I did this on the smart board, and they actually wrote a synonym next to the actual standard. And I'm talking about, this is a second grade standard. This can be done with first graders, second graders, middle school students, high school. It can be done with anyone. If you train them and you give them, you kind of have to help them and guide them. If the words are, if the academic language is a little difficult, you're going to have to guide them and teach them different words. And they will get used to this, and they will do it if you set your expectations high. Thank you. Okay, so let's go on. So the first strategy to help English learners become successful readers is old-fashioned, unpacking those standards, and this works. So we have another standard here. Determine the main idea of a text. Recall the key details and explain how they support the main idea. So hold on. So this is another standard, and this one is basically easy to unpack because all you have to do is basically highlight the academic language like what I did, and then we have to come up with synonyms for the academic language. So a synonym for main idea would be like, so we would determine the main idea or determine what the story is mainly about. And recall would be retell the key details and explain how they support the main idea. All right, so let's move on. So our second instructional strategy would be to create a synonym wall. And if you would look, you will see that I have an example of that. And you have to encourage ELs to use the vocabulary while communicating. So while generating conversation in the classroom, I will encourage ELs to use the synonyms. But I'm not talking about the simple words like catch or large or gigantic. I'm talking about the actual vocabulary like capture, enormous. They have to use the actual vocabulary when communicating in the classroom, but we have the synonyms there so that they can have a point of reference. So this is also a very good idea to help ELs acquire academic vocabulary in the classroom. Yes, it's very helpful. And I've made it where I would have all of these word walls, on my wall. I create little booklets with words and synonyms next to it. It's a great resource. Yes, it is great for the beginning of the year. Exactly. All right, so this is just a picture of me conducting my small group instruction, and that's the third strategy we want to look at today. That when you are instructing ELs, you have to use small group instruction. And this is really not that hard because a lot of people usually say, well, how am I going to do small group when I have 20 students in my classroom? Well, if you are really organized and you know what you're, and you know how to really, manage your classroom, it's really not that hard. You have to do it more like 35, right? Well, it's possible because, believe it or not, I've had a large group like that before, and it's all about setting those routines in the beginning. That's what's important. Yes, it's all about setting routines in the beginning, good for pull out and push and write and co-teach classes. But I've actually done it with a big group also. It's all about reviewing and going over those procedures at the beginning and getting them trained. That's what's important. If you will look on the wall right here, I have different groups and I have like a rotation chart, and that helps me out a lot. And I let the students do the rotations for me, so they will get up and rotate it for me. But it's very helpful to post the expectations on the wall. Okay, so when conducting small group instruction, here are some strategies to help you conduct learning groups. So the first thing you have to do is basically you're going to select booklets that you're going to read. So you're going to read text, and you're going to have to allow the students to converse with each other, and you're going to have to make speech comprehensible by rephrasing and slowing. Yes, exactly. Slowing your speech down. It's kind of like running records, but really there's some aspects of running records in there, but it's really not. I saw your question. It's there are some aspects of running records in there, but it's actually like small group reading instruction. So first thing you do is unpack your standard, and then you warm up by allowing the students to read some text. And at this point, you're doing a running record. So you're doing documentation in the format of a running record. Does everyone know what a running record is? I'm just wanting to make sure. It's just an assessment tool that you can use to help students to see where students are. So everyone knows what that is. Great. So after we have our small group and we unpacked our standard, we allow the students to read text in a soft voice, and we conduct a running record. Then we preview and rephrase concepts and use synonyms to explain unknown words. Okay, so usually how this works is I would have a group of students around my table, and I would have a folder with everything that I need. I would have a folder with all my assessments and the standard. I would have a folder with everything in it. And I would begin by passing out these books, and I would allow the students to read it while I take a running record. I will rephrase concepts and use synonyms to explain and build my background knowledge. All right, so after that, students would read selective readings, and I would document their miscues and generate conversations amongst them. Students may not know how to recognize miscues, and they may not know how to correct them. So I will basically teach them how to identify a miscue and how to correct a miscue that they have made. I would focus on words and parts that have been proven difficult for these students, and most importantly, I will establish a language objective. Okay, so my language objective may be something like distinguish between a proper noun and a common noun. That would be like a language objective. All the while, as I'm doing this, I'm making speech comprehensible to them. And what does that mean? Does everyone know what it means to make your speech comprehensible? So basically the term comprehensible input. Does everyone know what that is? No, yep, okay, everyone knows. Understanding, yes. So you make your speech understandable. Very good. So basically you use terms that these students may understand. And you slow the rate of your speech down so that students can understand what you're saying. Very good. All right, so these are some strategies that we can use to teach students how to correct the miscues that they make. So monitoring is one. And so you will teach these strategies to help them. You will teach them how to monitor by asking them questions. So if they make a mistake, I would say, does that sound right? Is something not right about that? Yes. And then I would say, look at the picture. Think about the story. Does your reading make sense? So these are just strategies to teach the students to help them monitor their reading. Okay? All right. Any questions so far? Yes, it's good. They're good strategies to help students. Very good. You have a poster. All right. All right. So this is another picture of the small group instruction. And so when the students are in small group with me, then they rotate to different centers. As you can see, they're working on their assignments at their desk. I have some on the computer. And then we rotate every 20 minutes. Now, because I'm an ESOL teacher, English Second Language teacher, I only have 45 minutes with them. Okay, and sometimes I have 90 minutes with them. But this particular group, second grade group, I only have 45 minutes with them. Okay. All right, so we go on to our fourth instructional strategy. And this one is called rating your academic vocabulary. So basically, this is how this works. It can be done with whole group instruction. It can be done with small group instruction. When you're previewing vocabulary, you ask the students to rate the words, the academic words. So if I'm previewing, if I'm previewing a lesson on, for example, like a social studies lesson on Franklin D. Roosevelt, okay? And there's a word that comes up that the students may not know, I would ask them to rate the word. So 1, you've never heard it, 2, you've heard it, or 3, you use it. And then I will ask them to use content clues to help them determine the meaning of the word. Now, if the students rate it and say that they use it, they should be able to tell me the meaning of the word. And that's that accountability piece. If I don't, students should not be able to put their fingers up and say 3 and they have not ever heard this word. Because if they say, I'm giving it a rating of 3, they have to be able to tell me what that word means. Okay? So any questions on that? Do you see how this can be helpful in your classroom? Rating that academic vocabulary? Okay, so I see some comments. Yes, love it. Very good. And Zelda is still typing. Right, okay, I think explicit instruction has more impact on vocabulary. Okay, okay. Great ticket out the door, possibly. Okay. Yeah, that's true. But my thing with that, explicit, okay, has then using context clues, but basically it's a strategy that they can use when they're out of the classroom. You give an explicit instruction, but when they're home and they're trying to explain, they're trying to learn what a word, they're trying to learn a new word, how are they gonna understand the word if they don't have a strategy to try to figure out the word? You know what I mean? Oh, oops. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So the last strategy that I have here is creating scaffolding tools or resources like bookmarks, graphic organizers, etc. But before you do that, you have to model instruction. Okay, so this is basically a reading comprehension strategy for primary students. I have one for primary and intermediate students, and it's called Unpack. And basically what it is it's an acronym that or a visual that helps the students find that academic vocabulary or find text evidence to match what they're reading. Okay, so this is how this is done. This is how this is done. You have to model this for the student. You have to model it so that they can understand, because if you just put this in front of them, they're not going to understand it. So basically how this works is there's usually a document camera, and you would model it under a document camera, and these are tasks that the students have to perform. So I would have a reading, and then I would have questions. So the students would have like a reading comprehension passage, and then they would have a question. This is just a way to help them gain the tools that they need to read and answer questions. This is all this is. So basically, the first step is you would have to underline the title and then predict the passage. So the students would have to do these steps, and you would have to model them. So first step is you have to underline the title, and then after they're done, they have to predict the passage. Okay, well, I have a question. What about reading at instructional level or free reading level versus grade level? Okay, what about reading at instructional level or free reading level versus grade level, which is now increased by 2 years with the, okay. Well, yes, this is a strategy that helps the students read on their grade level. It helps them, it actually, yes. So it actually helps them get to that point. And that's why this strategy is useful. It's a tool to help them get to their grade level reading. So if you use this strategy, you will be able to help them read on grade level if you keep using it. Did I answer that question? Okay, sort of. Yes, you figure out their level by doing an assessment. Yes, you figure out their reading level by doing an assessment. The assessment I have in the school district that I work with is that DRA2. So you figure out their reading level, and then after that, you basically gather resources, books, and readings that are on their grade level, and then you use this instructional tool to help them move towards their reading level. Yes, exactly. Thank you. All right. So this is a strategy that we use. Okay. So first you have to model it for them. You underline the title, you predict the passage. When you're predicting the passage, you actually have to write down what your prediction is. And then you patiently read and number the passages, and then you allow the students to answer their questions. And they have to also, you allow the students to answer the questions, and also you have to read they have to read the important words and circle them. And then they have to correctly answer the question by finding the answer in the passage and by putting the paragraph numbers next to the question. So basically, in a nutshell, what you do first is you underline the title, then you predict the passage. Then you allow the students to read the passage and number the paragraphs. Then they have to read the questions. and they have to circle the important words in the questions or in the passage, and then you have to go back and find the answer from the passage and put the answer next to you have to put the paragraph number next to the question. Does everyone understand that? I know it's a little confusing. So you underline the title, you allow the students to predict the passage, and then you read the passage and number the paragraphs. And then you allow them to read the questions and circle the important words, and then they have to correctly answer the questions by finding the answer in the passage and putting that paragraph number next to the question. Did I lose anyone there? Okay, great. Okay, I want to make sure everyone gets this because there's another one that's a little bit more detailed. Okay, so basically you would make bookmarks, and if you would look down where I have my resources, one of them says bookmarks. There's a bookmark for this that you can use and cut out and give to the students as a visual. Okay. So here's another one. This one is called Unravel. So this one is for more advanced, intermediate students. And this one was actually created by Larry Bell. The one before I created this one, the Unpack. But this one is called Unravel, and it was created by Larry Bell. And this one involves finding key details and text evidence. So again, you underline the title. All of this is done under a document camera modeling in front of the students, okay? So you underline the title, predict the passage. Now you run through and number the paragraphs. After doing that, so first you underline the title, then you predict the passage. They're writing their prediction on their paper. Then you run through and number the paragraphs. Next question, are you reading the questions? In this particular strategy, they have to read the question first before they read the passage, so that it puts in their mind that, hey, it's like a trigger. Okay, that I'm reading this question, but when I go down to the passage, hey, that's the answer to that question. Let me go back and highlight that. Are you reading the question? Are the important words circled? Venture through the passage, eliminate the obviously wrong answer by crossing them out. So basically, underline the title, predict the passage, run through and number the paragraphs, and then they have to read the questions first. After they read the questions and circle the important words in the questions, they go back to the passage and find the answers. Okay? So basically, you're reading the questions first so that you can basically have an idea of what you're looking for in the passage. Then you eliminate the wrong answers by crossing them out. Let the questions be answered and write down the paragraph number where you found your answer. Any questions about that one? All of this has to be modeled first before the students can actually do it. And I would model it like every day for a month so that they can understand, and then I would set them loose, give them their reading comprehension, give them their paragraph with questions. This prepares them for that standardized test that they have to do. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or any statements? Okay. So here are some more scaffolding tools. What should I do when I do not understand what I am reading? So this is another scaffolding tool that teachers can use to help students understand what they're reading. This is another bookmark that I've created so that students can use it as a visual to help them in the classroom. And of course, you would model this first before you give it to them. Okay, so I have created some bookmarks for you. The same information that I have, it's available on these bookmarks, downloads that we have on the side here. Okay, so you're free to pull them up and print them and create them for your classroom. Yes, they are. All right, so I have a scenario for you, and I want to generate some discussion about this, okay? Scenario one, scenario A. When Susan became a third grade student, she was reading on a DRA, and some others said that they knew what DRA was. It's a reading assessment. And she was on a level 6, which is first grade level. Susan's Lexile at the ending of the year was 156. She was reading on a DRA 18. So she started off at the beginning of the year on a level 6. Her Lexile at the ending of the year was 156. That Lexile is actually a first grade Lexile. DRA is actually a first ending of first grade reading level. Okay? Do you think Susan met expectations on the reading portion of the CRCT? And the CRCT is just our standardized test. Please give me your thoughts on that. Do you think she met expectations? Do you think she, and why do you say, I see Mary, why do you think she met expectations? Why do you think she passed our CRCT? Probably not by just a, okay. Beginning of second grade and Common Core, okay. Yes, for first grade or higher, very good. Okay, it looks like she improved a lot, but do you think she passed? It would not be enough. Okay, I see. She had great gains, but did she pass that standardized test? That's what I'm thinking. Do you think she passed? Okay, you don't think she had enough to pass. Okay. If she was taking she was taking the third grade. She was taking the third grade standardized test. Very good. It was third grade. No, so you don't think 156 is a good score. Okay, so let's see. Okay, hold on. Very low, very good. Well, I am pleased to announce that Susan did indeed pass our CRCT, our Criterion Reference Competency Test. She passed with a passing score of 820. She passed reading, she passed English Language Arts, and she also passed math. And the reason why she passed is because I utilized that Unravel. That's a strategy that helps, even though she wasn't reading on grade level, she passed because, yes, okay, what I'm saying is that she passed. Yes, that is a Criterion Reference Test. Very good. Very good. But remember, at the beginning of the year, she was not reading on grade level. So if she just passed, you know, it would be a good thing. So I have found those. Okay, I have found those strategies very helpful, and they're also on the bookmarks that I have on the bottom. And then I have another slide that I'm going to explain in a few minutes.
I'm fixing it for you.
I did my dissertation on how students acquire academic language to learn reading comprehension skills. And when I first started, this is the data that I collected. When I first started, all of my students, except one, were below reading level, except Daniel. Okay, I had students that were functioning on second grade reading level. I had some on first grade. Ken was on first grade DRA reading level. By the ending of the year, they made great gains, and they all met standards on our Criterion Reference Competency Test. And that's because I diligently used the Unravel strategy to help them. Okay? All right, so in closing, how do English learners acquire academic language to obtain reading comprehension skills? First, you have to unpack the standards and explain the standards using synonyms. You have to create synonym walls. Use small group instruction, rate academic vocabulary, create scaffolding tools, and lastly, you have to encourage ELs to converse with each other. They must use the academic language. Okay? So do we have any questions? And as I said before, the bookmarks that I use, the Unravel, the Unpack, all of those bookmarks are available to you on the bottom of the screen. And also the WIDA performance definitions, those performance definitions that you can use to basically set goals for all students, including standardized test is in April. So, but the biggest thing with Unravel is you have to model it first. You just can't put it in front of the students and expect them to do it. You have to model the strategies first, and have the bookmarks handy while they're doing the assignment. You have to model it first using a document camera. It will help you as much as it helped me. I've been using Unravel for, let's see, I've been an educator for 13 years, and I've used it for, I don't know, about 6 years, and it has always, every time, it's been wonderful. I mean, I've never, ever had a situation where a student could not meet expectations because they couldn't understand what they're reading, because basically it's a strategy that helps them find that text evidence, so that so if they don't understand the text, they can at least go back and find the text evidence to answer the questions that they have to answer. So that's how it works. Okay, do we have any more questions?
All right. Well, Mishka, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And